18 has been secured. Brown goes inside. Oh, what a slam from Jaylen Brown. Oh, Pritchard banks in the three at the buzzer. Great in and out dribble. Oh, he set off the smoke detector.
What's up, everyone, and welcome into your Celtic Source. I'm sure as you guys have all heard by now, Tom Thibodeau, head coach of the New York Knicks, has been fired this afternoon. First time a head coach of the Knicks has been fired in 25 years. And I'm sort of torn on this decision, right? On the one hand, you have him leading this team to a 51-31 record, right? Third best record in the East this year, making a pretty long, substantial playoff run, losing 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pacers, obviously. And he's really changed this sort of culture of this franchise, right? This franchise went from a sort of relaxed, almost team that didn't pay much attention to the details, and he comes in and he develops their sort of grit, their defense, their tenacity. Um, the Villanova guys, bringing them all in. Obviously, that wasn't his decision alone, but basically finding a way to build chemistry and take this next step with Jalen Brunson's young career, and he's done a great job with that, right? But you also have, on the other hand, the sort of complaints about him, which have always been complaints about him anywhere he's coached, right? And that is the sort of his inability to play depth in the regular season, his inability to sort of adapt in playoff series, right? His stubbornness, that's always been a complaint of his. And I think we saw that in these playoffs a little bit. I think this was one of his better series, actually, of adapting to different play styles and the way series are going after 1 or 2 games. Him being able to sort of change up the way he's playing, which we saw in this series, right? He brings Josh Hart off the bench. He puts in Mitchell Robinson, who wasn't a great, didn't play that much in the regular season, but he comes in and he makes a huge difference, especially in that Celtics series. Right, he was unbelievable on the offensive boards, and his defense. Right, the Celtics had to foul him, and the only reason they were fouling him was not because he wasn't a bad free throw shooter. Obviously, that's one of the reasons, but it's because he was so harmful to them on the offensive or on the defensive end that they had to find a way to get him off the court, and the only way was hoping that Tom Thibodeau would take him out if he missed enough free throws, which didn't work because quite frankly, Robinson actually made enough free throws to stay on the court, and I would say he was probably one of the major reasons why they won that series. But in this Pacers series as well, right? He obviously this is the series he brings Josh Hart off the bench. He puts in Deuce McBride. He brings in or Miles McBride. He brings in Precious Achua, and he tries to change things up, but it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work, in my opinion, is because he didn't play these guys in the regular season, right? He played the Stars heavy minutes. He doesn't believe in his depth off the bench, right? And that sort of has run these guys into the ground. And when these guys these role players come off the bench, they're not ready to play in this series, even though you give credit to Tom Thibodeau for changing things up. You have to sort of take that back because these guys aren't ready to play. They haven't played all season. And so while Tom Thibodeau, he finally broke out of his stubbornness, he didn't really, because these guys, come in after not playing in months or at least consistent minutes. What are you expecting them to do, right? Like, they're not warm. They're not in a style. They don't have the same chemistry as everyone else. So it's hard to play them with, the starters. And so, it didn't work. So that's why I'm sort of torn, right? Tom Thibodeau has definitely changed this culture around in New York. And on the one hand, he still has the same strategy. While it changed a little bit in the playoffs, he still has the same strategy that he's had for much of his coaching career in Minnesota, in Chicago. The very same problems that have occurred there. As for the Knicks, you know, it wasn't all his fault actually. These playoffs, right? And I'm not talking about like his decisions to play the role players and the role players not ready. You have a major problem on this team, and that is that your two best players, Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, who are great offensively, are the same reason that make your team poor defensively. Right? They're both really easy to ISO against, to go at on almost every possession, and that's what the Celtics did. That's what the Pacers did, and it worked for the Pacers a lot. Right? And the Pistons even had some success against that in round one. But you're not trading Brunson, right? He's your cornerstone. He's your franchise player right now. So maybe you trade for Cat, although you just traded for him this offseason. I don't think it helped that you wasted 7 picks on Mikal Bridges. And Mikal Bridges was not, terrible by any means, right? He had the great couple of stops in that Celtics series. He knocked down some clutch shots. Again, the Pacers series as well. But 5 picks for him for a player that is not scoring 15 points a night consistently, I don't know if that's worth it. But I think, the Knicks have to think about getting rid of Cat. And after this season, I don't know how many teams are going to be on the market for a guy like Cat, right? His defensive struggles, and it's not even the defense, it's his, undiscipline, right? Him making stupid fouls that prohibit him from being on the court late in games for offense because he's in foul trouble. And so when you get that, right, it wasn't like I said this, right? He's not a bad defensive player when he tries, but when he's just slapping guys' arms and guys are still making the shot and you're still picking up these fouls, then when they need him in crunch time, he's not available. And it's not even the crunch time, it's like the third quarter when you have a chance to build on some momentum, get a 15, 20-point lead that then would allow, him not have to play in that fourth quarter. But when he's not on in the early stages of the second half because of the foul trouble in the first half, he allows other teams to stay in games. And then, you do have arguably the greatest crunch time player in the game right now in Jalen Brunson, but Tyrese Halliburton was able to outduel him, and you needed someone else to help him, and he wasn't able to do that because Karl-Anthony Towns is on the bench, and so you have to think about trading Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't know what you're going to get for him. The problem is you're already going to have one guy who's a defensive liability in Jalen Brunson. There's nothing you can do about that because most brilliant offensive stars like him are not great on defense, right? You get better, but you're never going to be great. There are very few exceptions in this game right now that are still really good defensive players or not liabilities at least. And until you get to that point, you're going to be attacked. And I think part of the problem with this series, or even these playoff, or even this season, really, this whole season, is guys on the Knicks were not paying attention to every little detail on the defensive end because they're playing the full game and they know they have to go back down on the offensive end and try and work to get buckets. And that's a problem. When you're not using your bench, you can't pay attention to all these details that Tom Thibodeau sort of works hard to instill in these guys. You can't play that way because you can't waste every little bit of effort when you have to go score on the offensive end, which in almost everyone's eyes is more important than the defense, right? If you can't stop someone, but you can go score on the other end, you can keep this game close. But the Knicks weren't quite good enough on offense against the elite teams, and especially against the Pacers, that to make up for their sort of stupidity on the defensive end. And it wasn't even like they were bad. It was just all the little, like, not hustling back, letting the Pacers score in transition on a made basket. Like we talked about this before, you cannot have 5, 6, 7 possessions a game where you score and yet the Pacers are erasing that bucket in less than 3 seconds. A full court dime from Tyrese Halliburton to Pascal Siakam for an easy dunk. Like that cannot happen multiple times on Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges on a 3-point shot off of either a made basket or a rebound. Pascal Siakam would just streak ahead and it would just be an open dunk. Like that just cannot happen. Doesn't matter. And I think part of that is just, their inability to hustle because they know they're playing the full game. Also, some of that is just, lack of effort, which can't happen even if you are tired. Like you got to at least try a little bit. Um, if Tom Thibodeau sees that you are tired, maybe he thinks to sub you out. But if you're not tired because you're just not hustling and standing there, Tom Thibodeau doesn't know any better than to just keep you in the game. Next steps forward here for the Knicks, you're probably going for a coach like Michael Malone, who unfortunately plays the same sort of style or is the same style as a guy like Tom Thibodeau, right? He loves his veteran guys. He likes his guys that are already developed in this league, and he doesn't have to sort of babysit and coach them how to play. And, he's going to struggle in this environment as well, I think, because you had the greatest player in the world right now in Nikola Jokic playing for you, and you won a championship. But we saw this year, right? Things weren't going his way. He gets fired. He doesn't. There was sort of a little mistrust between, the GM and the coach because he wanted veteran guys that are ready to win now, whereas the GM wanted to sort of develop the young guys, drafting. And I think that's going to be a problem here in New York. So, like, you're bringing in Michael Malone because he's the best available coach right now. It's going to be the same sort of strategy. You don't have the one hand is you don't have the defensive guys if you keep the team the way it is right now, and it's mostly going to be the same. I don't know. Maybe you can get something for Cat. Who knows? But then you're going to lose a offensive player. You're not going to get a offensive player better than Cat that is also ready to play defense unless you go out for Giannis. And that changes everything, right? If you go out for Giannis and you trade away Cat and Bridges and maybe someone else, you're getting Giannis, but you also have to, develop guys around him. Right? The Eastern Conference is wide open next year, especially with the Celtics down. Right? The Pacers might be the best team in the Eastern Conference next season. So, like, you can have an easy path or somewhat easy path to the Eastern Conference Finals again if you can figure out a way, and maybe even win it, if you can figure out a way to play defense with higher detail and sort of more effort. And Giannis, he's a great player. He's great on defense too, right? He can play the 4 or the 5, but maybe you go double big. You have Giannis, you have Miles McBride or maybe Josh Hart, right? So Giannis can play the 4 and not the center. But still, you have a lack of shooting out there. So it's going to be hard to, even if you trade for Giannis, you're giving away a lot, especially probably some perimeter shooters. So who knows? Giannis definitely wants to, stay in the East. Maybe he'll, maybe he'll go to the Spurs or not. I don't know. They have a lot of good options in Stephon Castle, their rookie of the year, and other guys that they could trade. But the West is, there are probably at least 12 teams that could contend for a championship last year or next year. So, like, it's not open. Like, every single game is going to be a battle. So you go to the East, you have a much better chance of at least getting to the finals. So, like, maybe Giannis will go to the New York, but you still have to find a way to pick up this defense. And Michael Malone, I don't think is going to be the answer. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be live tomorrow with a Celtics podcast episode about different trades this offseason. Where could some of the star players for the Celtics, Al Horford, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, if they're traded this offseason, where could they go? And then obviously we will have live post-game shows after every finals game and deeper dives and different videos covering the finals on off days. And then obviously throughout the summer, we will have news, instant reactions like this one whenever a trade happens, whether for the Celtics or major trade across the NBA, especially because I think this could be one of the most busiest off seasons we've had in a long time. But yeah, until next time, go Celtics and I guess go Pacers.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured.